Meeting. Got it.
Meeting is someone live streaming.
Nothing. Join ahead.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Hello, sir. Can you switch on the audio, video?
Okay, one sec.
Okay. Thank
Hi,
you.
good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
So you got the link, sir?
Yeah, I got the link.
So now you are as a normal participant. You will
Okay.
be the host so that you can
Okay.
control. And at the end of the session, you have to click end for all.
Okay, sure.
I think you know how to handle the Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. I have handled Zoom, Teams, all this.
Yeah, sir, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Vijay, working as a senior software engineer in Zen Dynamics Private Limited, Bangalore. So I'm working in this company from past 4 years,
Okay.
and I have worked on many technologies, as I said, React, Groovy Grails, Java, Node.js, AWS. So it's a startup, so we will get the opportunity to learn all the concepts, all the different technologies.
So, BTech or MTech or
MTech, I have done my MTech.
your BTech from which university? Sir?
VTU.
With you. MTech also there.
Yeah, MTech, I was in Autonomous University called as BVB CET Hubli.
Oh, in Karnataka only.
Yeah,
Oh, very good.
it's in Karnataka.
Okay. So, are you ready, sir?
Yeah, I'm ready.
And I think our participant will join by 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Okay.
So, in the meantime, you just make it ready, all your presentations, and the system make it ready. So, we'll give the host
Okay.
now.
Okay, I'll
So-
share the presentation and let us see whether it opens properly.
I'll make you host, sir. I'll make you host.
Okay.
Sir, share చేస్తున్నాను sir.
Yeah.
Soon as the link share this.
We will make
Yeah.
person also.
So, we made you as a host, sir. Now you can control.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, your screen is visible.
Yeah.
Okay, you're seeing the presentation, right?
Yeah, React, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, we'll start the session by 10.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, sure. So we will wait for participants to join.
So, are you in the office, sir, now?
No, sir. Today,
Take
I
it
have
leave.
taken work from home. So
Okay. So, no problem. So, how is the climate in Bangalore now?
it's raining.
Raining. Oh.
Yeah.
Always the trains there.
Climate will be almost 25, 20 degree temperature will be there. So
Mhm.
it was raining yesterday and today
Okay.
okay, it is bit we are a relief, we are not getting any rain from past 2 days.
Live start అయిపోయింది already. ఇంకా తర్వాత వాళ్ళు ఇది చేస్తుంది.
Okay, sir, we'll have a session.
You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, we'll start by 10.
Okay, sure.
సూర్యుడు విశ్వలక్ష్మి నుంచి బయటకు వచ్చి
అవును.
సాయితో మాట్లాడాను.
Hello.
Hello, Vijay sir. Vijay Kumar.
Hi, sir.
Hi sir. Please ask participants to mute.
I can mute them.
No need to ask, just you can
Yeah, I
click
can
the
mute.
participant and unmute, means mute for all.
Sure, I can do.
Unmute. Means mute for all. Means mute for all.
So good morning, everyone. 1 second. Let me unmute everyone. So is it audible? Give me like 2 minutes. I'm trying to set something on my system.
ಹೀಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು.
So good morning, everyone. I think you can unmute now and you can also talk. So let me introduce myself to everyone. So I am Vijay, working as a senior software engineer in Zen Dynamics Private Limited, Bangalore. So this company, like I'm working in this company from past 4 years. So this is a startup and we have the head office in the US and the branch office is at Bangalore. So since it is a startup, we get more opportunity to learn the technologies, like latest technologies. So currently, I have learned a few technologies like React, Angular, Vue, Groovy Grails. On the backend, we maintain backend servers, AWS, database. So like I have the opportunity, I got the opportunity to learn different technologies like in the past 4 years. So in the today's session, like I'll be talking some of the basic concepts of React.js. So like I think you people are are familiar with few concepts of JavaScript. So this is advanced version of JavaScript, and it has its own syntax and like other features. So when we like go through those slides, like we will understand what is React and how it works, and also like we will try to learn some programs which we can write using this React library, and we will try to build some mobile apps as well as web apps. So here like I'm going to teach you some of the basic components which are required to develop the web app as well as the mobile application. So let me share my screen. So hope everyone can see my screen.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So what are we going to learn in this session? So in this session, so we will learn some of the basic concepts of React. So everyone like says React is nothing but a component. So what is component, and what is state, what is properties, and what language we use in order to write the React programming. So all these basic concepts. So along with that, we will also learn how to install the packages in like how to install the React package, and how to create the React project for both native as well as web app. So let us start. So if you all know, like you are all familiar with the traditional approach. So before JavaScript, forget about the JavaScript. So before JavaScript, so what we were doing, so we were requesting. So if you look at this slide, so user was requesting the HTML page from the server. So on the right hand side, I have the server. So user was requesting the HTML page from the server, and server was sending the requested HTML page back to the user. So what was the disadvantage, or what is the disadvantages of this approaches? So here I was requesting and I should wait until the page should come from the server. So there was a latency here, and everything I need in order to show in the website should come from the server. So there was a latency here. So in order to remove this latency, so JavaScript came. So what is JavaScript? So even JavaScript is a programming language, right? So what is JavaScript? So JavaScript is also a programming language which helps the user or the programmer, or you can call it as a developer, to execute some logic on the browser. So that is the advantage of having the JavaScript. So what it did was it removed this constraint, or this latency. So what JavaScript did is, so I will request for a page. So first time the page will get loaded onto the user. So once the page gets loaded, if I want to change some element in the website, so then I can go here and I can use the JavaScript and I can change some of the elements. So I think you all are familiar with some of the concepts of JavaScript. Like if I want to access any element in the website, so we have some functions, right? If you all remember plain JavaScript. So I'm talking about plain JavaScript or vanilla JavaScript. So what happens in the vanilla JavaScript is, so we have some functions. If I want to create a tag, so there is a function called as document.createElement. So I use this document.createElement and I create a tag. So inside the tag, I can write something. So that's how we use JavaScript in order to change something on the website. And also you might have heard some of the functions like document.getElement by ID, getElement by name, getElement by property, some of the properties. So all these functions are provided by JavaScript. So what is the main advantages of JavaScript, or what JavaScript did is, so it asked the developers, or it made the developers to change something instantly on the browser without even requesting something from the server. So here we have a terminology called as DOM. So what is DOM? DOM is nothing but document object model. So what is document object model? So can anyone tell me what is document object model? Okay, so I'll only like explain what is document object model. So whenever you open any website, let me share my screen again. So whenever I open any website, give me a second. So if you can see here, so whenever I load any website, so what browser does is, browser will create a tree-like structure. So the tree-like structure it will create, and that tree-like structure is nothing but it is an arrangement of like HTML tags. So it will create a tree-like structure which contains different tags, and the content, whatever you are showing on the browser or from on the website, so those contents will be like structured in the tree format. So here if I want to change something on some like some text on this website, so what I should do using DOM or using the vanilla JavaScript is, I should go to this particular element. So I have to search for this element in which div it is present, and then I can execute some script on my browser which will change this like change this text. So this is how the DOM was functioning. So one second. Okay, so this is how the DOM was functioning. So you can ask me now, so why do we need React if JavaScript was doing the task? So the main latency was here, we were requesting the server and server was sending. So this was eliminated by the JavaScript. So JavaScript allowed developers to change something on the browser. So why do we need React? So why do we need React? So what is React? So we will study now. So let us go to React library. So let us go to React library. So if you type reactjs.org, so this is a React website. So you can see here, so they have given the definition. So what is React? React is nothing but it is a JavaScript library which is used for building the user interface. So React is also a JavaScript, but it is having some advanced features. So what is advanced advantages of JavaScript? We should the user or the developer should not wait for the server. Instead, he can modify the content on the browser itself, and that would reduce the latency which the user can see on the websites. Okay, so what is React? So as I said, or as it is given in the reactjs.org, so it is a client-side JavaScript library. And why do we use React? So if you see the mobile apps and the websites, so mobile apps are more interactive and more reactive. Like when you click something, mobile apps respond instantaneously than the web apps. So in order to overcome that, so even like for example, if you like if you see the websites which are developed from React, so for example, Facebook or the Netflix. So even though you open the Netflix website on your browser, so when you click something, so it gives the look and feel like what we see in the mobile application. So what is the next like use of React is it allows us to create, or it allows us to build using reactive interfaces using the React, and we can create both mobile apps as well as the web apps. And the other uh, feature of the React is it follows declarative component approach. So what is declarative? So there are two kinds of approach in the programming. One is imperative and the other one is declarative. So what is imperative? Imperative is nothing but we follow the set of instructions. Suppose like if we follow the vanilla JavaScript, so we follow the imperative approach. So what is imperative approach? We will follow some set of instructions. So what is set of instructions? For example, first I want to create a tag, HTML tag. So I'll write document.create element HTML tag. So then I want to add some content into the tag. So I'll create a property and or I create an element and add the content into that particular element which I created from the DOM. And again, I have to close the tag. So all these are nothing but like we follow some approach which is given, or we follow some instructions which is given by the programming language. So that is called as imperative approach. So React follows declarative approach. So what is declarative approach? We write some code and React will do the rest. So how that will how React will identify something and how it renders on the browsers, like we will see in the coming slides. So but main thing from this slide what you have to learn is, so what is React? React is a JavaScript library. And why we use React? So React is used to build the interface which is like very interactive and which gives the look and feel what we see in the mobile. And it follows the declarative approach. So we'll go to the next slide. So any doubts on this slide? So we'll go to the next slide. So next we should understand, before diving into the React concepts, so we should understand what are single page applications. So what are single page applications? So your Facebook is called as a single page application. Even Netflix is also called as single page application. So what is single page application? Single page application is nothing but, so we will load an HTML page. So we will load an HTML page. One second, I'll show you the Netflix website. Okay, so when I click on the Netflix website, or when the Netflix website is loaded, so first time it will load the HTML document. So it will load the page. So just remember that it will load the page. So when I click on something, so what user thinks is like it rendered him a different page. But what React does is it will use the single HTML page and do the modifications so that like whatever changes or whatever buttons you click, so that interface it will show up in the same page. But what user feels is, user feels that it is showing in a different page, but everything will be rendered on the single page. So let us go back to the slide. Okay, so using React, so here for example, assume we have a website where a small part is like I want to develop a small part which should change automatically. For example, I want to have a climate widget here, so that should change automatically like every hour or every 30 minutes. So then what I do is I use React in order to develop a small portion of the application. I mean, you can create, or you can use React in order to create a small portion of the application. And also you can create the entire application using React. So advantages of creating the entire application using React is it will be a single page application. So only one page, one HTML page we will have, which will be loaded from the server, and all the other changes, whatever we see on the browser, will be nothing but the components will change, so that the user will have a different experience when they click on any button or any tabs in the website. So this is about single page applications. So earlier, if you remember, when we were creating our traditional approach, so we were having multiple pages. So this is the advantages of having single page application. So next we will see, next we will learn like some of the alternatives of ReactJS, like what are the different other programming languages which are available other than ReactJS, which does or which uses single page application. So ReactJS is just a library. So one thing you should understand is ReactJS is just a library. It is not a framework. So if I want anything related to the routing or any other feature which is not there in the library, so then we have to install that package. So we use Node.js to install those package to the React application. This is about React.js. So the other alternatives of the React.js is Angular and Vue. So Angular, as we know, it is a framework. So it is packed with some of the features, and we use TypeScript. The Angular, like, it is heavyweight, like when it is compared to React.js, and this is suitable like for like projects which are like very big. So you cannot use Angular to run small projects. Like if you have few pages, then using Angular like would not be much suitable. So we have to always choose the language when we are developing based on the requirement, or based on how like what is the intention of the user, and so who is the targeted audience. So we should see how many pages like we have. So all these things like we need to consider in order to choose the language. So the other alternative what we have is Vue.js. So Vue.js is also like it is lighter than Angular, and like bit contains more features than React.js. So currently Vue.js also is getting like more popularity, but like for now the much popular like programming language is React, because of that component based approach, and it gives like very good look and feel, and it is like developer like friendly. So any doubts on this? Okay, so before we start with the components, React components, so we all know that React is nothing but a component. So before we dive into React components, so let us understand some of the basic concepts of JavaScript which will be used in the React.js. So we use ES6 version of the JavaScript in the React. So what is ES6? ES6 is nothing but ECMAScript. So this is the new version of the JavaScript. I think this came in 2015, and we use this ECMAScript syntax to write React.js. And the other thing what JavaScript provides, so in the vanilla JavaScript, when we were declaring any variables, so we were just using var. But now the next generation JavaScript provides let as well as const. So we will see how let and constant works, and also arrow functions. We will understand what is arrow functions. We know how to write functions in the object-oriented programming or in the normal C programming and all. So here we have a new concept called as arrow functions, and we also use some export and import statements in this programs. And also we have classes. So classes is nothing but like a blueprint of the objects, and like we can have the variables and methods inside these classes. So along with that, we will learn some of the other concepts like spread and rest operators. So let us open a JavaScript JS bin, so where we can execute JavaScript on the fly, and we can see what is output when we execute all the different programs. So let us select JavaScript here, and I'll take the console. So let me see whether it prints. So when I run this, so we can execute, so using JS bin, so you can execute the JavaScript command like on the fly, and you can see the outputs of it. So as we were discussing earlier, we will see how let and constant works. So let us declare a variable called as test. So this is of type var, and I'll try to print the variable, and let us see whether it prints. So now what I'll do is I created a variable called as test, and I assigned a value called as Mike, which is of type string, and I'm trying to print whatever is there in this variable. Now I'll take the same variable and try to alter it, and I'll try to print the same variable again and see whether the value got changed or not. So let us execute this. So when I execute this, so let me clear it. Okay. So when I execute this, so you can see here, first Mike was printed because I assigned Mike to the test variable, and I printed that variable. So Mike was printed, and I modified this variable, and I changed the text to Mark, and I'm trying to print the same variable again. So it printed the modified value. So using var, so what you understood from this is using var, you can modify the contents or you can modify the variable, whatever you have. So let us take let. So there was a new concept which was there in the next generation JavaScript, that was let. So what let do? So what let will do is, let also allows us to modify the variable. So you can change the variable variable with different values, and we have the other. So we have one more type of variable called as const in the React. So when we use const, so you can see here it doesn't allows us to modify the content of the variable. So let and var. So here let and var will allow us to change the content, but constant doesn't allow us to change the content. So you have to like see where we have to use const and where we have to use let. So those things you need to understand. So next we will see how to write arrow functions. So just concentrate on this, because we will be using the arrow functions in the React programs. So how to write functions? So we all know how to write a function. So we'll write function name, and we will try to print something in the function, console.log, and we'll print test. So I'm trying to print something in the function. So let us call this function test. Let me execute this. So when I execute this function, so I'm calling the test function, and inside that I'm trying to print a string value. So how to write function test arrow functions? So what we should do whenever we want to write the arrow function is we should not use the keyword called as function. Instead, we should declare a variable. So let me show you. So what we should do is we should declare a variable called as test. So what I have done is my function name is test. So I'll make it as constant. So I'll say constant test. So we have to write the arrow function. So we all know that function will have the parenthesis where we pass the parameters. So we should write the parenthesis followed by the arrow operator. So how to write the arrow operator? We should write equal to followed by the greater symbol. So after writing this inside the function, I'll try to print something here. So I should call the function. So you all can see here how to write the arrow function. So as I told you, I'll just write above normal function. Okay, see here. So how to write arrow function is, so here we had a function name called as test, and we had a function variable here. So what keyword here? So what we did here is we declared a variable called as test. So test is nothing but it is a function name. So along with the function name, after function name, we have to put equal to and then the parenthesis. So if you want to pass any parameters to this particular function, so then you have to pass inside this followed by the arrow operator, and inside this brackets, like you have to write the logic of the function. So this is how we write the arrow function. So let us see how to pass parameters and how to write parameters. So I'll pass a parameter called as 10. So you can see here, I'm passing the parameters. I'm passing the number, which is 10. So I'm passing this number. So I'm reading it in a variable called as age, and then I'm trying to print the age of that person. So this is how we write the arrow functions. So next we will understand what is import and export statement, and what is classes, and what is a spread and rest operators. So if you see this slide, we have a code snippet here. So I have created a file called as person.js and utility.js. So what we have done here is we have created an object called as person, like which contains name of a person, and I'm trying to export. So I'm trying to export. So why we should export? We all know that which is a built-in feature called as reusability of the code. So we can reuse the components. So people say we can reuse the components and make we can avoid the duplicates in the code. So how do we avoid duplicates, or how do we make reuse of the code? Is nothing but we write a function. Sorry, we write a function, or we write a class, and then we will export that. So export default person. So what is the syntax of this is like we are exporting with the same name. If you want to change the name, you can change while doing the export. And here we were exporting only one object called as person object. So here we are trying to export two things. So we can export multiple things from a file. So here we are exporting clean as well as base data. So two constant variables, like one is an object and one is a function. You can say this is an arrow function. So clean is a function name followed by the parenthesis. Then we have an arrow operator. Then we have the logic of the function. So here we are exporting the clean function as well as the constant variable called as base data. So when we export from a file, so if I want to reuse this person class somewhere in the new file, so then what I have to do is I have to import that particular class or that particular file. So how to import? So import followed by whatever name you had given while using the export. So by default, it will take the name, whatever you had given in the export. So you can see here import person from person.js. So what this means is we have to always specify the path from where you are importing. So when you are importing something from a different folder, so what you have to do is dot slash. So what dot slash indicates is you are trying to import from the current folder. So this file exists in the same folder where app.js exists. So we are trying to import something or some logic or some content from this particular file into the app.js. And I have the same import. I'm importing the same file by giving different names. So you can also give different name while doing the import. So apart from that, so if I want to import a specific function, so assume that utility.js has so many functions. There is a clean function, there is a write function, there are so many other functions with different names. So if I want to import a specific function, you have to import, or you have to import in this way. You have to put a parenthesis, a flower bracket here, and what is the component which you are trying to import. So here I am trying to import the clean function from utility.js. So, and there is one more statement. So I'm trying to import base data from utility.js. So you can also combine this together. So what you can do is you can just write after clean, you can put comma and write base data. So you can together import both the components from utility.js. So next we will understand what is spread and rest operator. So what is spread operator? So this is a new concept what we have in the next generation JavaScript.
And first is అక్కడ టూ క్లాసెస్ టు లాస్ట్ క్లాసెస్ టు టాప్ అదర్ బ్లాక్స్ లో కూడా ఉంది అంటే ల్యాబ్ కమ్ క్లాస్ రూమ్స్ ఉంటాయి.
Okay. So I was talking about spread operator and rest operator. So what spread operator will do is, so assume you have an array which contains elements from 1 to 10, or you can take 10 to 20. I have an array with elements from 10 to 20. And if I want to add few elements into it, so what I should do is you have to create a new array. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create a new array. So whenever you want to append or whenever you want to add some elements to the old array, so React or this JavaScript, the next generation JavaScript has a feature something like this. You have to put 3 dots followed by the array name. So when you write something like that in the brackets, so what it does is it will add all the contents of this array into this new array. Along with this array, I want to add few more elements. You can put comma and you can add then the other elements which you want to add into the new array. So what happened here is it created a new array from the old array, it took all the elements from the old array and it appended two more values, 1 and 2. So this is how we create a new array in the next generation JavaScript by making, or if I want to reuse the array, whatever we have in the, whatever we had earlier in the program. So in the similar way, like how we created an array, so we can also create a property. So what I'm doing here is, so here assume you had a property called as old object. So where you had a like list of person name. I want to add a new property. So again, you should follow the same thing. So here we are creating an object. So you should use flower brackets followed by 3 dots, and you should give the name of the old object followed by the new property. So you should specify the new property. So this new property gets added into the new object. So this is how we use spread operator. Spread is nothing but this 3 dots followed by the old array or the old object, and you can modify those objects, or you can create the new objects using the old array and old object. And the other concept what we have is REST. So what REST does is, REST, you see here you have a function and I want to pass n number of arguments. So I don't know how many arguments I'll be passing it here. So in that case, what we should do is, you should again use that operator what we had earlier. So we should use 3 dots followed by the args, the name of the like arguments. So when you write this, you can pass 1 argument, 10 arguments, like how many arguments you can, however, like how many arguments you have. So you can pass those many arguments to this function. So any doubt, like till now, like we have covered a few concepts in the React. So does anyone has any doubt in this? Okay, let us go to the new concept. So, so here I have, this is a React component. So before we start with programming, so let us see how this component is built. So we have a React site, or you can, this is a website, or you can call it as a component. So we have a component, and you can see there are so many other components which are embedded inside the single component. So this black color, like whatever you see, so this is one component, the outer component. So inside this outer component, we have 3 other components. That is, we have this component where we show the months, and we have, you can see these 2 components look similar. So they created one component of this, and they have reused the same component and created one more expenditure here. So and here, so here for January, we see there is a component which was created. So this is a component here. So the same. Okay. The same component has been reused. So component. So you can say January has a component which shows the progress. So the progress, or the amount of expenses spent during that year. So they created one component and they reuse the same component to show for the entire year. So even this filter is a component, this button is a component, and this upper side, whatever you have, so is a component. So what is React? So React is nothing but we create components individually, and we combine together, and we add all these components to the main component, and the website like is developed. So that's how the React component works. So we have to arrange the components when we create the components separately, but the thing is we have to arrange them properly in order to like make more interactive and more more you have like user has to feel look and feel whenever they see the website. So we have to arrange them properly in order to have it working, and it should have some purpose. Whenever you create some website, it should have some purpose, and some logic should be there whenever you create some websites. So let us start with components. So let us take 2 minutes break, and again, like we will start with components. So, and like, are you clear with all the like basic concepts which we discussed, or still you have any doubts before we start with the actual React components?
Already used on a scenario. Unmute.
ఇప్పుడు బ్రేక్ ఇచ్చినారు జస్ట్ 2 minutes వస్తుంది మీరు ఒకసారి అంటే ఏదైనా అవసరం వస్తుందో లేదో
Okay, well, like we'll continue the session. Okay, so don't worry about the React part, what we have here. So let us understand what is component. So component is nothing but HTML. It is nothing but a combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So whenever you open any website which is built of React or which is component based, so it is nothing but it is combination of HTML. So finally we will see only HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript. So what is JavaScript? It will like if you don't use JavaScript, like what happens is we will build a static website. Let me mute all. Okay. So as I said, like whenever you create any website or any component or any component based website, so you will see HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So what React does is, or what is React component? React component is nothing but even React is a JavaScript library. So we all know that now. So this uses HTML. Again, this also uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and we will create a React component. So why we should use components? So why component based architecture is followed than the normal approach? So what happens when we use component based architecture is, so this provides reusability of the code. So as I said, or we can go and see some of the websites which are created using React. So let us go to Netflix. So this is like popular website. So if we see here, like I have a small screen here, you can see here. So we see here, we have different movies, like they are trying to render in a single row. So what they do is they create one component for one component, say for example for this movie, and they make use of the same component for all the other thumbnails, whatever they are showing here. So only thing they change is they change the image which is which is being shown on that particular component. So using state and props, you can modify the content of a particular component. So here they are making use of the same component in order to display all the other movies whatever they have in the list. So this is how the Netflix website has been like developed. So it uses component based approach. So like one advantage is reusability, and it comes by default when you have the React app. So the other one is separation of concerns. So what is separation of concerns? So as we know, like whenever we have a function with a big logic, and like what we try to do is we try to split the logic. We try to create a sub functions from a big function. And like if I want to use the same logic in somewhere else, then what I can do is I can call that particular function and I can make use of it. So the same concept is also provided by components. So it will divide the logic into like several parts, and we can combine them together in order to form or in order to get a fully loaded website. So so this is one of the feature of React component. So what is React? So React allows you to create reusable and reactive components. So what is reactive components? So as you all know, like I said initially, like we have mobile applications as well as websites. So we always see that mobile applications are more reactive or interactive than the websites. So by using React, we can even make the websites like similar to the mobile application, and it will be more reactive. So what is component? As I said, component consists of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So mainly we will be concentrating on HTML and JavaScript. CSS, using Bootstrap, you can add CSS to the page which you create using the React component. And as I said, it follows the declarative approach. So what is declarative approach? So we will tell, like, we will not give the instructions to the React. So what React should do? So instead, what we do is we will set some state, or we will tell, or we will give the structure to the React. So React, what it does is it will figure out where it should render that particular state or the content which you provide to the user, which you provide to the website. So React will find out where it should render on the screen. So we should not or we will not tell React go and render this component or go and render this tag at a particular place. So the other important thing which we should understand before we start coding is JSX. So what is JSX? As the name says, so JSX stands for JavaScript and XML. So we use XML syntax in order to write the JSX. So React use JSX like programming language. So we write the code using JSX. So what is the advantage of JSX? The advantage of JSX is like it will be easy, like you can say it is developer friendly, and it will allow us to write the code similar to HTML, and which is easy to read and easy to write. So we will see how JSX works and how to write the JSX code. So before understanding, or before we write some of the JSX code, so we will understand what is Babel. So whenever you install React, so you'll get Babel. So what is Babel? So Babel is used for compiling the JavaScript JSX code, whatever you write. So it will compile the JSX code and it will turn the JSX into JavaScript. So this process of converting is called as transcompiling. So just remember this, we use Babel in order to convert JSX into JavaScript, because we all know that browser will understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if we write the code in JSX, the browser will not understand. And in the React, we use JSX. So just remember, we use Babel as a compiler in order to convert JSX to JavaScript. So we have Transcompiler. So what is Transcompiler? So Transcompiler is nothing but like any source code. Say suppose you have written the code in JSX. I want to convert from one language to the other language called as JavaScript. So if I want to convert from one language to another languages, so that is called as Transcompiler. So if you see this image here on the below, so user will write a code in JSX. So he will give this to Transcompiler. So what is Transcompiler in React? So we use Babel as a transcompiler in React. So what it does is user will write a code and he will give it to Babel. So Babel will convert the JSX code what user has written, and that code is converted into JavaScript, and that JavaScript is given to the browser. So now browser can understand the JavaScript and it can render the page or render whatever like you are sending in the form of JavaScript. So from the JavaScript, as I said, you can do the logic, or you can change some of the property in the website. So you have some functions here which will allow you to do all those things. So we will see what is Babel. So let us go to the Babel website.
Yeah. Vijay Kumar?
Yes, sir.
The extension of what's the React is JSX?
We can use JSX. So earlier we were creating the components using .jsx. Now we follow .js. So even JSX and JS like both are okay, you can use .js extension as well as .jsx extension.
So directly .jsx we cannot run.
You cannot run directly because browser doesn't understand the language. So you have to convert that language into JavaScript. So I'll show you how that gets converted.
Okay.
Using the Babel. So if you search for Babel in the Google, so you'll see this Babel website. So as I said, so it is a transcompiler which converts the code which you write in JSX to the HTML. Sorry, JSX to the JavaScript. So let us take, let me clear this.
No.
Okay, so we will write
React compiler.
Yeah, it is a compiler, transcompiler.
It is not for the JavaScript, no? It will convert into JavaScript.
Yeah, it will convert, but we don't write code in JavaScript. In the React, we use the programming
It is
language.
compiling the JSX file into the JavaScript.
Yeah, correct. So it will compile and it will convert it into JavaScript and it will give it to the browser. So what browser does, browser will understand, as I said, it understands only HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So as I said, this JSX looks like HTML. So let us write an HTML tag. So if you see here, I have written an HTML tag called as div tag. So inside that I have written some content. I have written a content which should be displayed. So what React does is on the background, like we don't see all these things when we compile the program. So I'm just showing you what happens on the background. So we write the code in JSX. So what React will do is it will try to create an element. So you can see here, if we start writing the code in this way, it is not readable, and we have to remember like so many syntax. In order to create element, we have something, and we have to, in order to modify the element, we need something. So what is the best approach is? So best approach is to use JSX, because JSX is developer friendly. So I'm stressing this because developers are the one who write the code in order to create the website. So we have to make their life easy. So in order to make the developer life easy, we are using JSX. So let me keep whatever we had earlier. So if you see here, this is the code. So what is JSX? JSX is nothing but it looks like HTML. So here what we are doing is we have created a div tag. So normal HTML we use class, but in JSX we use class name. So there are like light differences between the normal HTML and the HTML, the JSX language. So here we use the complete like class name. So there is no keyword called as class here. So I'm giving some class name called as app. So this div has a class name called as app. So inside that I have a header. Inside the header, I'm trying to render the image as well as the anchor tag, and I have some content printed here. So what happens is, if you see here, this code which is written in JSX got compiled. So what the compile code looks like this. You can see here it created div tag. So it has the class name called as app, and it created one more, we are creating one more header tag. So we have to again create element called as header. So again, this also has some class name. We create image, and we have some properties for that image, like source, what is the source of the image, what is the class name, and what is the alternate name. So all these things we have. So this is how like it runs on the background. So let us go to the slide. So you don't need to worry about how the Babel compiles. So whenever you install React, if you write the JSX code, the Babel will convert whatever code you write in the JSX into the JavaScript, and then it gets rendered on the browser. So let us go to the next slide. Okay, so let us start. So till now, like I explained you some of the theory concepts. So let us start creating a React app. So I think everyone have this setup in your system. So if you have the setup, you can like try executing along with me. If you don't have the setup, then like you can just wait and see like how I write the program and how to execute all those things. You can see. So first we should understand how to create React app. So before creating the React app, so what are the prerequisites you need to have is I need an IDE to run the React. So we are using Visual Studio Code in order to run the program. So I'll just open the Visual Studio Code. So this is the Visual Studio Code, and so why I use like we use IntelliJ. So you can see here we use IntelliJ and Visual Studio Code. So when you compare these two different IDEs, Visual Studio Code is lightweighter when it is compared to the other IDEs. So, and you have some plugins here which will make the life easy. So the other thing what you need to have is you need to have Node.js installed in your system. So you can have the version greater than or equal to 14, or even lesser than that also is okay. But when you create a React app, it will always ask you to have the latest version. So let us see. So how to check whether you have the Node.js installed in your system. So just open the terminal and type node-v. So node version. So the version, the JavaScript version which I have is 14. Sorry, the node version, whatever is installed in my system is 14. And we will see what is create React app. So create React app. So create React app. So what is create React app? 1 second. Okay. So when you type create React app in the Google, like you'll see the GitHub link where the Facebook have like uploaded this source code. So what create React app is, it is a tool which will allow you to create the React app. So why Facebook added this as an open source code in the GitHub? Because so Facebook, you all know that like Facebook was the one who developed the React app. So in 2013, so React app was developed by Facebook, and in 2015, so they came up with React Native. So where you can use, I think React Native and React Web like are totally like different way of coding. So React Native, you can write the code in React Native, and that can run in both Android, iOS, as well as website. But whatever we are learning now is just like creating a website, how to create a website using the React application. So let us see how to create a React app. So first you should install the create React app tool. So that tool you have to install. So how to install React app? You can execute. I'll give you some time in order to execute these things. So what you can do is open the terminal, and if you already have the Node.js installed, so you can install this package, or you can install this tool. So you can just type npm install create React app. So this will try to install the React app package into your system locally. So if people are trying with me or just listening, or you'll just see the way of code I write. So if you have Ubuntu, that would be the best. Ubuntu or Linux, even the Mac OS. So that would be best, like when you like compare to Windows application. So if you can try creating, if you can execute the React app, or if you can create the React app in Windows, that would be fine. Else, you can just see here like and understand how to create the React app. So let me open the terminal and execute along with you people. So I have the Node version installed. As I said, I have version 14.20. So let me create, I already have created the React app. I'll try to create again one more time in order to show you how to create the React app. So just type npm. So npm is nothing but node package manager. So all the packages, so like this is a package manager. So whenever people come up with something, and if they want to make it available to everyone, and or if they want to make that source code public, so what they do is they'll create a package, and they'll upload it to the node package manager. So next time, whenever the other person who wants to create an app which uses this particular package, we don't have to write all those code related to that particular package. So that comes as a package, and that gets installed into the system locally. So you'll have all the functions, everything. So only thing is you should know how to make use of that package. So I'm creating the React app. So when you execute this npm, I stands for install. So npm install create React app. So it created the React app. So it will show you what is the React app version, create React app version which we have installed locally. So we have installed version 5.0.1. So once you create a React app, next what you have to do is, once you install create React app tool, we have to create a new project, React project. So in order to create the React project, so we have to execute this command. So what is npx? Npx is nothing but, like, again, it is a node package. Like, we have to execute this. So whenever you use npm install, it will download the entire package, whether you use it or not. Whether you use it or not, it will download all the dependencies related to that package into the node modules. But what npx will do is, npx will only take a specific package and you can try it out. So what I'll try to do is, I will execute this. So what this does, this command will allow you to create the React app. So cd, I am going to a folder where I have the project. So you can also create some folder where you want to create your first React app. So what is the command I'm trying to execute here? So the command which I'm trying to execute here is React app. So you have to give the app name. So I'll give the name of the app as IARE app. So any name you can give and press enter. So this will take some time in order to create the React app. It has to download all the packages related to React DOM. So some scripts will also get downloaded. So it will take some time, but this is how you create the React app. So for your convenience, like I can add that in the chat, those two commands. So you can execute this on your local and create your first React app. So you can see here it is still taking some time to create the project. So, and also you can see it is trying to install some dependencies using this node package manager. Okay, so now the project has been created. So once you have the project created, you can open that project in the Visual Studio Code. So you can just go here, open, go to file, and here you have open folder. So the folder where I created the project is inside the projects. So inside the project I created IARE app. Okay, I have it here. So I have the IARE app. So just say I trust the authors. So the project is created and we have opened the project. So whenever, like as I said, using npm install, it was trying to install some dependencies. So you can see here in the node module. So whenever we install anything in this particular project, so everything will be created, or those packages will be there inside this node modules. So you can see here we have Babel. So Babel related packages, and we have date picker, some css, and also we have react related components. So you can see here, so you can see here some react dom, react. So all these packages will be installed in the node modules. So that comes by default when you create the first React app using the command which I gave you. So let us understand the structure while you're creating the project on your local. So as I said, node modules is where all your packages or the dependencies exist. Then you have the public folder. So I was saying React is a single page application. So if you see, can you see this, or I should zoom in order to see all these file names? Anyone, can you answer? Can you see the file names, or should I zoom this?
In laptop, it is okay.
Okay, I can see it, right? Okay, so here we have some files in the public folder, and we have some files in the source folder. As I said, React is a single page application. I will see only one HTML page. So you can see here in this entire project, we have only one HTML page. So I told you earlier, when you go to Netflix website, so we will have only one page which gets loaded initially. So after that, whenever you click something, those things happen on the same page. But what we feel is, we feel that user has loaded one more new page. So this is how the content, only the content gets changed. The component gets rendered in the same HTML page. So we have, so let me tell you what are the things which are present inside the public folder. So we have favorite icon, so which is called as fav icon, and we have some logos with different sizes. Those two are PNG images, and we have HTML page. So index.html is public because it has to be like it has to be accessed by everyone. So so it should be public, so it is in the public folder. And we have manifest. So in the manifest, what we do is we have some names, some metadata present here. So don't worry about this for now. So we have manifest.json and some robots.txt. So don't worry about that. So main thing you have to understand what we have in the public folder is we will have some icons and the logos which you have in the website. Along with that, you have one HTML page. So that's why it is called as single page application. Then if you go to source folder, so in the source folder we have the CSS. So you can use the custom CSS. If you want to use custom CSS, you can write your own CSS. So if you want to install Bootstrap, you can install Bootstrap using npm and try to make use of it. So that is also allowed. And we have app.js folder. So you can see here by default this code, whatever you see inside the return statement. So this is in the form of HTML. So this is called as JSX. So it looks like HTML, but along with this HTML tags and all, we are using some JavaScript code here. So that's why it is called as JSX. So app.js, you can give the extension as JSX or JS, both are allowed, but currently in practice we have or we are saving it as .js. So this is where you can create the components. So you can see here we have function. So it is nothing but we are creating a functional component. So here we have a function. Inside the function we have, so let me minimize this. So I told you we will be using like import and export statements. So we have import statements here. So you can see here app.cs is in the app.css is in the same folder where we have app.js. So you have to import. I told you /represent. We are trying to import it from the current folder, and always you have to specify the path in the single quotes. So and the other thing, we have imported logo and we have given some name. I told you that we can give some names while importing also. You can specify the names or you can use the same name which was used while exporting. So these two files are important, app.js and app.css. Then you have test.js. So don't worry about that. And the other thing which you have to like worry about or understand is index.js. So this is called as index.js, where we will have render the component. So you can see here is we are trying to render the app component. So we are trying to render this app.js inside this component. So I think now it will be a little bit confusing for you, but focus mainly on HTML page. So what we get from the HTML page. So in the HTML page, we have headers where we have the fav icon, URLs, all those links. We have some metadata we have. So main thing we have to worry about is body. So where do we load the components? The components will be loaded in the body of the HTML page. So here we have created a div. So you can see here by default a div was created, and the ID of this div is root. So root is the ID of this div between here. So what we do is we load, or whenever whatever component we create, that component created will be loaded into this body or into this tag. So using the ID we will load it. So how that happens, let us see. Okay, so how that the app component which we created get rendered on that particular body where we have the div tag with id root is. So here, if you see here, I'm using the vanilla JavaScript. So it says document.getElement by id. So it gets the element by id. So here we have passed it as root. So in the index.html, we have the ID as root. So it will take this div tag. So it is understood that we are going to render the content in the root tag. So what we are rendering is, we are rendering this app component. So as I said, app.js will be your component. So just remember, whatever components we create in React will be with the extension .js. So we are trying to render that app. So you can see here, what I did here is I imported that app.js by giving some by giving a name called as app, and I have added that app. I have added that import in between, or I have added that import inside render function. So what render function will do is, it will render the content of the app into this root tag. So where we had root tag in the index.html, we had a root tag. So what we do is, now like we understood some of the basic files, whatever we have in React. So let us try to run this application. So how to run this application? Just open terminal. If you go to Visual Studio, you have a section called as terminal. Select new terminal. Okay, and you have package.json. So whenever you create a Node.js application, like any JavaScript framework like Angular, Vue, or even Node.js application or Express.js application, so all your like packages which you want to install, or if you want to write some script, so I want to execute the React application. So instead of executing this command, so what I have done here is, inside the scripts I have created like start. When I type npm start, what it should do. When I type npm build, what it should do. When I say npm test, what it should do. So it should run the test scripts which are provided by React. So here when I type npm start, so what I should do is, if I want to start the application, I have to give npm start. So what npm will do is, it will go to this package.json and it will execute this command, whatever we have. So you can see here, whenever I hover on this, it says run by the npm start command. So if you click and if you write or if you type npm start and press enter, so it will start running this React project. So that's all. Like the project has been created. So you can see here your first React project has been loaded. So as I said, we are using the logo and we had some text. So let me show you here what we had in the app.js. So what we had in the app.js, we had logo. So logo is getting printed. We have some content which is displayed in the paragraph tag. So what we have is edit, source, and save to reload. The same thing is getting displayed inside the web page. So you can see this content here, and we have an anchor tag. So when you click on this, it should take you to the next page, and it should go to the URL which you have specified here. So if you go to the anchor tag here, so you have the class name, you have href tag. So all these are HTML tags. So we all are familiar with HTML tags. So that's the reason like JSX is easy to understand. So when we executed npm start, you can see here it was compiled. So it was compiled, and so you can see your webpack was compiled successfully. So the Babel compiled this project, and we were able to run this application. By default, it will start in 3000 port. All the UI application, front-end applications, whenever you create and execute, it will it will start in 3000 port. So now I want to install a Bootstrap. Assume I want to install a Bootstrap package. So how to install the Bootstrap package? So just type npm install Bootstrap followed by the version which you want to install. So if you don't specify the version, it will install the latest version. If you specify the version, it will install the specific version. If you don't remember the command, search for Bootstrap node package in the Google, so it will take you to the site and it will show you the command just like this. Npm for Bootstrap. So if you type npm for Bootstrap, so this is the node package manager, and you will see here. So if you don't specify, it will install the latest version. If you specify the version, so this is already like built in, so we don't have to create it from the scratch. This is like a library. We can make use of that in our application. So I have installed Bootstrap. So next, I want to apply the style sheet. So how to apply the style sheet? So let us see where Bootstrap is. So as I said you earlier, whatever you install will come and like it will be stored. That package gets stored in node modules. So here I have Bootstrap. So all this, so you can see here bootstrap.css. We have this file bootstrap.css file. So how to include this bootstrap.css file? I'll show you. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, Mr. Vijay Kumar.
Yes, sir.
If you install same thing in Windows, the file structure is same or different?
You should see like I'm not using Windows, like I'm like from past few years, so I'm not sure how that works in the Windows, but you can try installing. If not, like I'll see, and later like I can reply to your mail, like if you send.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I want to use
Sir,
the
excuse me.
Yeah.
Windows also the same structure, sir.
Okay.
File structure is also same in Windows.
Okay, if you can install in Windows, that is good.
Yes, so it's already completed. That Windows version only. The file structure would be the same as usual, like window and then Windows.
Okay, so now like I want to import the Bootstrap which I have installed, and let me see whether it took the CSS from the Bootstrap or not. So as I said earlier, like if I want to import some class name or import some file from the package, I have to use import keyword. So I have the import keyword here. So where is my Bootstrap? Okay, so here is the Bootstrap. So import Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is your package name. Inside Bootstrap, I had this folder. Inside this, we have CSS, and there I have to use bootstrap.css. So I'm using bootstrap.css. Okay, so I have imported Bootstrap into the index.js file. So let me compile the program and run it again. So let me start the application. So when I start, automatically it will compile and it will display the content. So you can see here, this color got changed because of the Bootstrap library we are using. Earlier it was displaying in white color. So now the Bootstrap, the code, whatever you have, will be displayed in pink color. So this is how to use Bootstrap. So as of now, like we will not worry about the UI, like UI, making the UI look, feel and better. Instead of that, like we will understand some of the concepts which are present in React. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll try to alter this page and see whether it renders or not. So I removed everything except div. I removed everything and I'll print welcome and I'll compile. So this has auto compiling features. So whenever you make any changes, you don't need to run again npm start. So if you just save it, it will auto compile, and by the time you go to the browser, that should have been already rendered. So you can see here. So the welcome, whatever I wrote inside the div tag, like it appeared, the text appeared as it is. So you can use other tags like h1. So I can make use of h1 tag. So h1 stands for heading. So inside heading, I can add the content, and if I save it, so you can see the h1 tag is applied. So this is how we write the content in JSX. So next thing we should understand is what is functional component and what is class component. So here by default, when we created the React app, it created functional component. So what is functional component? It will have a function followed by function name, and in the brackets, like we will write the logic. So what we will usually write inside the function is we will write the return statement, and inside the bracket, inside the parenthesis, like we will write the JSX code. So just remember this. This is how we write the content inside the functional component. And finally, we have to export. So once we export this, we can use it in like wherever you want. You can make use of this same component again and again. Okay, so now what I will do is I'll close all this. Don't save or save. So I'll create a new folder called as components, because I want everything to be inside the components. Because if I create 100 components for my website, so if I create everything inside the source folder, it would be not good. It is not the best practice. So what we do is we will just create a folder called as component. So I created a folder called as component. I created I'll create a new file. So what is the file? I'll create the file name as users.js. So as I said, you can use JS extension. So inside components, I have created a new component called as users component. So before you start coding, what you can do is you have to install some of the plugins. So that will make things easier. So if you have this plugins installed, it would be easy to write the code. So can everyone install these two packages at least? Search for this plugin, and also search for prettier code format. So prettier code format will allow you to make the code code formatting. It will allow you to make the code in a proper format. It will automatically format the code. So simple React. So we'll see what is simple React snippets. So here we have some shortcuts in order to create the components and all. So here what I will do is I will create my first React class component. So already we have a functional component. We have seen how it gets executed. So let me create a class component. So before creating class component, I have to import the component package into this the component which I'm creating. So what is a shortcut for that? So if I want to import the React component, so I have a shortcut called as IMRC. So go to your file and just type IMRC. So it will it is an intelligence, so it will automatically import the React as well as its component from the React library what we have in node modules. So this is your first step. So we have to import the React component. So whenever you are using class components, whenever you are creating the class components. Now I want to create a class component. So if you see here, we have a command, a shortcut called as CC. So if you go and type CC here, so it will, if you press enter, it will create a class component. So what should be the name of the class? You can write the name of the class. So I have given the name of the class as users. So let me create the class name as user. So if you see here, this has double cursor. So if I type here, automatically the same class name got exported here. Okay. So whenever you create a class component, you should always have this extend component. So this concept is nothing but inheritance, which was taken from object-oriented concepts. So we are trying to import this class from the component class. So by default, we will get state. So for now, we don't worry about state. We will remove it. So inside render, I want to render something. I want to render some tag. So this is my first class component. So what I will do is in the h1 tag, I will write IARE, something like this. Now I have exported this particular class. So we have a class component, we have render function. Inside the render function, we have a return statement, and I have the JSX here. Okay. So we all are in the same page now. So now what I will do is inside the code, I'll go to index.js. So index.js was rendering app component. So now what I will do is I want to render the new component which I've created. So that is called as user.js. So how to create or how to import that particular component is, so you have to just type import. What was the name of the class? So name of the class class component which I want to import is user. So when you start typing users, it will show. So it is asking you whether you want to import users from this component. So when you click enter, so what happens is it has imported users class from users component. Now instead of rendering the app component, I will render the users component. So I just changed it here. This is not required. You can remove this strict mode. This is by default they provide us. So you can just have this component which you want to render inside the render function. So what I did here is I did this and I compiled it. Okay. So already it is compiled. So let us go and see whether whatever we have sent is getting displayed or not. So it gives some error saying that export your component from its file it is defined in, or you might have mixed up default and named export. Okay, so I have changed the name. Okay.
Sir, excuse me.
Import
Yeah.
user.js, huh?
Yeah, you have
Excuse
to
me.
import. Yes, tell me.
Yes, sir. When you are importing from components hyphen U capitals are users. It's U is capital.
This one.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to, I think, users.js, no?
It is a correct.
Yeah, 1 second.
Class,
Let me.
class name will
share.
uppercase, that is correct.
Yeah, that is correct. So
It is
class.
users.js, I think.
But users, no, sir. Or import that one only, na?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think you
that's
have
the
to give.
users.
Use.js file name small letter only.
Let me try this.
Yes,
and
sir.
see.
No, that file name is small letter only.
No, sir.
1 second.
$3,000.
So that is correct. The file name we have to give its users because so this is the component name which we are giving.
Okay, component name. And then, sir,
Okay.
component name is same as better to give file name, class name, sir. Then it's working easily.
Component name I have given it as users.
Class name is also should be the same. Here we can give the small u.
Okay, I think we can change it. Rename. Yeah, it
Yes.
got rendered. So that is how like we import and we can render the component inside uh, the main component. So what we do to print one more tag, so one more content. So for example, if I want to print something like test, so JSX doesn't allow me to use the tags, different tags like this. I'm using the same tags, but here it is not under one tag. So we should always place all these different tags under one tag. So what I should do here is I'll create a div tag and I'll copy this two tags which I had and I'll paste it inside this div tag. So what JSX understands is whatever you do, everything should be under one main tag. So here inside this, I have added two different tags, IARE and test. So when I go here, I should see both the changes. Now this is all in one single line. So if I want to write it in a prettier format.
Yeah, Vijay,
So, yeah, yes sir.
you remove the div, will it work or not?
If you remove div, it won't work, sir, because you
Just
have.
try.
Yeah, I tried it.
All the commands should be in div only, sir.
It shows error here. That is the mistake, and you can see here it shows like it can't render this particular thing.
So can I write in span, SPAN?
Yeah, any tag you can use, but usually we will create a div tag, and that tag, div tag only you have to use, and that div tag will have some ID, and those you can make use of those things and apply it to
span. Let us write span.
Sir, 1 second, sir. Div tag is nothing but group of instructions, sir. Spam is only one or two instructions only.
We will execute and see
between
what
div
happens.
and span, sir. Hello.
Yeah, even that will work. Even if you write
span also work.
But what JSX looks is it doesn't look whether it is div or not. It should have one main tag, so that you remember. It should have one main tag. Inside the main tag, you can have a number of tags.
But span also allowed.
Yeah. So suppose
sir,
I want.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I have one doubt, sir.
Mhm.
Please.
Yeah.
Actually, I created a component and then create a file called .js, sir.
Yeah.
And then that I should run in app.js, sir. Now
No,
here
no.
running index.js. Is
No,
there
what
any differences between these two, sir?
no, what index.js will do is index.js is trying to render whatever component you present here. So what you can do is you can use you can export this user's component here and make use of the user component inside this app.js component, and finally export app component, and you can place
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
you can place app component here. So that
So
is
that
nothing but
app should be there in index.js.
yeah, you can use index app.js in index.js, so that is correct. But here what I'm trying to show you is even you can directly render a different component into the browser. So that is what I wanted to show.
You are directly rendered into the index.js.
Yeah, that is
Both
one
should
of
be
the
right now.
feature. Yeah, both are correct.
Okay, thank you.
So what you are doing is, or what you are thinking is, the new component which you have created here is added to app.js. It is nothing but you are combining the components. So this component is added to app component, and finally app component you are trying to render it inside the index.js. So even that is also correct. So here I'm directly trying to render users component. That's it. So okay, so next thing what we are trying to understand here is, as I said, this was like written in a single line. So if I write something in two different lines, or if you have many lines, this JSX h1 I will give IAR. So it is always like, what is the best practices whenever you have multiple lines? What you have to do is you have to put a parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis you can write the content, and then you have to say. So when you have multiple lines, so that is a best practice. So that was seen inside this functional component. So if you see here, we had so many tags. So when we have multiple lines, it is better always to have it inside the bracket, and then we have to give it to the return statement. So here I did the same thing. So I created multiple lines, and just I'm trying to save it and render the content onto the browser. So this is one component we created called as class component. Now suppose I want 10 users. So what I will do is I have a class component created. So next what I will do is I'll try to render this component like users. We have different users, right? So I'll try to render different users in the same component, and then we will see how it works. Let us take like 2 minutes break before like I start with multiple users. So next what I'll be discussing is how to use state and how to use prop. So one single program, I'll alter everything and show you how state works, how properties works, and then we will see how to render that as a component. So let us take 2 minutes break, and we will continue again. Thank you. Okay, so we will start again. So what I'm trying to do now is I have users component where like as the name says, we will have multiple users inside this component. So what I will do is I will create a component called as user, and from this component I'll create a single user and I'll make use of this user component in order to create multiple users. So how to do that, we will try to understand it. So what I have done is, in order to show you the difference between the functional component as well as the class component, I have created this component as a functional component. So what you have to do, I'll show you one difference here. So whenever you're creating a class component, I told you you have to use extends component. So this component was imported from this React library. So here again, here we don't use component because this is functional component. So as I told you how to write functional component, it is nothing but arrow function. So we can write it in the form of arrow functions. So I have written the user is the function name, and you have the parenthesis followed by arrow operator, and you can write the logic inside this function. So what I will do now is I'll just return some content. So what I will do is I will create a content called as user. Okay. So what I have done here is I am returning user as a text from this component. Now this created one single user. Now I have to make use of this component inside this class component. So first what I have to do is I have to import the class. So class name is user. So when you type user, so it will automatically show you that like you are importing user from user component. So here, instead of printing a static things, so what I will do is I will print the user component. So you can write like this, or by making use of a single tag. You might have already studied this in HTML. So just type user and followed by the ending. So we are ending the tag in the single tag. So here, what I am trying to do here is I'm trying to create one user inside the users component. So I have compiled it. So we have some. Okay, 1 second. Okay, I had given space here, so that was the mistake. Put it as user render function. Okay, it is returning
Users or user.
So I'm trying to import user functional component into users class component. So I'll create a div And here I'm trying to put Hmm, 1 second. Let's okay. I'm trying to render. And here I have users.js, which is declared as constant. We have arrow function. I'm trying to return h1 tag. I think I have to put semicolon. Okay, the semicolon was missed in the functional component. So after return, inside the bracket, after writing the JSX, you have to put the semicolon. So that I had forgot. So what I did here is I created a functional component which created a single user. Now I want to create a content using that functional component. So here I have created one user. So if I want to create many users, so if I write just user, let us see what happens. So if I just write user, it will display the user which was there in the functional component. So if I want to print 10 users, so then what I will do is I will make use of the same component. So here you can see how I am reusing the code. I already have user component. I want to create 10 users. So I'm copy pasting the same thing and I'll save it. So when you save it, if you see here, I got 3 different users. So this is how you can make use of component for reusability. So I'm reusing this code to print multiple users. So this is one of the advantages of React.
Now
So,
give different name for the different user.
yeah, we can give. We can use the property names and other things also. Let me show you. User tag inside this, we can write test1. I can give test2 and test3. So what will be the output of this? Will I get? So output of this still is user, but what you were expecting is you want a test1, test2 and test3, but what we are trying to print or what we are printing in h1 tag here is we are printing the text. So text name is user. So even though I write in between different content, it will try to render the text which was given in the h1 tag. Now I want to print the names of the users which you have specified here. So this is where your next concept comes, which is called as properties. So you have something called as props. So you have to make use of props in order to display the content. So this dot. So what you are doing from users app is for this class, you're passing some property. So I have to make use of this property and print inside the user component. So whenever you are using props, you have to use this property. So this is nothing but this keyword you have to use. It will point to that specific function or specific class object. So this dot props dot. So whatever you specify in between, so these are called as children. So we have to specify it as this dot props dot children. So let us see, child or children. Sorry, this keyword don't comes in functional component. It will only come in class components. So just remember, the object specific things are only specific to class components. So since user is a functional component, we can directly use props.children. So we are passing some properties. I want to print that property. So if you go here and see, I'm seeing test1, test2, and test3. So is it clear? So here we make use of a new concept called as props. Suppose I want to print the age of this users. Assume I have age specified as 10. I will specify age as 20. Then I have age for this user as 30. Suppose I want to print age property. So what we should do? So you are passing the property. So you are passing the property to the user component. So in the user, so here we had h1 tag. So I'll add pipe here. Where is pipe? I had pipe. I will add pipe, and I will make use of h2 tag or h1 tag itself, and I want to print the age. So how to print the age? If I directly write props.age, so what happens? It doesn't print because you always need to specify the properties in the flower brackets. So when one second, there is some mistake. So what I did is inside h1 tag. Okay, what I do is I'll make use of only one tag. So there are two tags. So I'll add this side. Div tag. So you can see here the age also is getting printed. If I want to show them in one single line, let me remove this h1 tag. Just show normal text. Okay, when I save this, so you can see user test1 is age is 10, user test2 age is 20, and user as test3 and his age is 3. So now we will understand what is the difference between class component and functional component. So as we discussed, class component should have component imported and it should extend component, whereas functional component you have to import only React library. So this is first difference. Second difference is second difference, I have to show you one more scenario where okay, and the other thing is props. So if you use props in the functional component, what happens is you should not use this keyword. You should directly write props.children. So if you are passing any parameters or any property in between the tag, then it should be accessed using children. And if you specify anything inside the tag as the property, here I'm passing age, and you can access this particular age using props.age. So this is how the props works in functional component. You should not use this keyword, and automatically props are available in the functional component. So just remember this. Now assume I want to pass one more prop or I want to pass a property to the users component. So how to pass property to the user component? So how do we pass property to the user component? We have index.js. So in index.js, I will specify the title as welcome. Some title I'll give welcome. So this is the property I'm passing to the users component. So here, if I want to print the property, sorry, users component. So here, if I want to print the property, what I should do? So here, what I will do is I'll create h1 tag, so h1 tag, and here I will write this dot props dot title. It's okay. So I have to specify the title here. So this dot props dot okay, age. I want to get the property of okay, I'll come back to this again. So now we will worry about state, how to use state inside React component. Or okay, 1 second. Okay, so we will worry about how to use state. So what I will do is I will create a state. So how to create a state? And remember one thing, you cannot create a state inside functional components. So always functional components are called as stateless components. So you cannot.
What are the main difference? State and property.
Properties are, you cannot change the properties. It will be static values. Whereas state, you can change the values, immutable. This one, mutable and immutable is one of the difference between state and properties. State you can easily change, and the other difference is state can only be used in class components, not in the functional components. And always, whenever you have any application, for example, the Netflix or any application, so if anyone asks what is this main component is made up of, so main component is always made up of class component, because you have different which should be made of class component. You can't use functional component because we will be using states in order to modify the content or component, in order to change the component. And nowadays even functional components are used by using hooks concepts. We have React hooks in React. So by making use of hooks, we can use state inside the functional component also. But earlier, when React was created or developed, this was the major difference between functional and class components. So let us create a state. So inside the state, so what we will do now is we will create a state where we will have some users inside the state, and we will try to print the users. 1 second. So I wanted to show you the syntax of state. So if you see here, state is equal to followed by like flower brackets. So here also I have written state followed by flower brackets. So now inside this I have to write the content. So what is the content? I want to create users. So what I'll do is I'll create users array. So users array, inside the users array I want to add some users. So I'll just give name test1 and age as 20. Test2 age as okay. So this will be equal to, okay. So this is how you create a state. So what I have done here is I have created a state called as users. Okay, so I'll give a small letter because our class name is also users, so it may get confused. So what I have done here is I have created a state called as users array where I have their names. So this is a text. So let me put them in the double quotes. So test1, test2, and test3. So these are the users' name and their respective ages. Okay, so this is how we create a state. So next what we will do is we will try to understand how to modify the state or how to access the state. Suppose I want to access the state element here. I want to print, instead of hard coding the age of the user, I want to get it dynamically from the state. So now what I will do is I will remove all these static things which we created and try to make it dynamical. So for state, we have to use this keyword. So this dot state dot users dot. So I want to access the first user. So it's an array. So users of 0 index and his name. The same thing, but different index for all the other users. So I'm trying to access the name property using state. Here we should try to access the age property. So here I want age of all the people. So users, so 0th index, first index, and second index. Okay. And here I want to display 1 and 2. So how to access the state? We have to use this keyword, this dot state dot users with 0th index, his age, name, and so let us go to the screen. $20, $50, and $60. Is this the one? Okay. So we are passing the user's age as 20, 50, and 60. And you can see using the state, I was able to print the user's age as well as name.
Then increase the font size.
Okay, 1 second. Appearance. Is it clear now? So can you see it now?
Little bit.
Yes, sir, it's okay.
Okay, I think you can see. So here we understood how to create a state and how to make use of state. So now we will make it like some more dynamic. So how to make it some more dynamic? So instead of using this, what I will do is I will create one more function called as what I will do is first let me remove this. I want to make it dynamic, so I'll create a button. Let me create a button. So click. So I'll create a button called as click me, and then whenever so here what I'm trying to do is whenever I click a button, I want to decrease the age of these people. Maybe by 10, or you want to increase the age of these people. So how to do that? So what I have to do is this button has on click functions. So control Z. So button has on click function. So let us make use of on click function. So on click, I will call the function. So how to call the function? So you can write this dot reduce age, something like this. Age is the function. So what is the difference? I'll tell you how, when you should use parenthesis, when you should not use parenthesis. Let me write that function, which arrow functions. Okay, reduce age. So what I want to reduce here, I want to reduce the age of the people. So here, let me take an example. Counter, we can take the counter as the example, or we can also make use of okay, so let me take this as an example. Okay, so what this function will do here is, as I said you, I'll try to take this user list and reduce the age of the user. So how you can do that is, here inside this function we will create one more constant variable called as new state. So what new state will do is, what this will hold, I'll show you. So I want to access all these people age. So this dot state dot users. So I have users. So I'll take users and I'll use the map function. So what map function will do? So map function, what it does is, it will take all the elements from this array and it will try to create a new element, sorry, new array, so with the altered values. So why have chosen map? Because it will take individual user and try to try to modify the age of this users. So I'll create a function inside this. So you can see here, this is a nameless function. I don't have any name to this function. And when I do map, as I said you, it will give you individual users details. So I'll pass the parameter as user. So it means we are passing single user as a parameter to this function, map function. So what I should do inside map function is, I have to change the age. So here I will take new user. I'll create a variable called as new user, and I'll assign this user whatever I got. As I told you, it will get the first user, and that user I'll assign it to the new user. Now I want to change the new user age. So I'll say new user dot age. So new user dot age minus equal to, so I'm using this plus or minus equal to together, equal to and minus together. So I'll reduce the user's age by 10. So where is the new age of the user is stored? The new user age is stored in this particular variable. So I have to return that variable. So what it will return, let us return new user. Okay, so let me explain what I did here. I created a button called as click me, and on click of this button, I'm trying to call a function called as reduce age. So what is the difference between using parenthesis here and not using parenthesis is, if you use parenthesis, when you load the component itself, this particular function gets executed. So I want to execute this function on click. So I have to remove this parenthesis. I have to just give name of this function. So this dot reduce age. So now when you click on this function, click on this button, this particular reduce age function will be called. So now what I have done here is I have reduced the age of the user. So new array got created, and the new array is stored where? The new array is stored in new state. Now I want to set the state. I want to set the user array. So earlier user array was having the old data. So I want to set the user array. So there is an inbuilt function called as this dot set state. So for this this dot set state, you have to pass the new state. Okay, try to understand this properly, because this is very important concept, because everything you change is by making use of state and props. So what I did here on click me, I'm calling a function. So inside a function, I'm trying to get this user array. So this was a static array. I'm taking this array, I'm considering element one by one, and I'm trying to reduce the age of this user by 10. So what happens is this new state will contain a new array with name test1, age it will be 10, and this will be 40, and this will be 50. So after modifying the array, so your array, new array is in this particular variable, I want to display this state. So if I want to display this state, then I have to use this dot set state as new state. Now we have done this. Now how to print state inside the render? So how to print state inside the render function? So that you should understand. So how to print state inside the render function is, one second. Okay, let me recap. Okay, we have user function on click. So state I'm passing. Okay, next. Here I want to print the state. This dot state dot users dot map, and I will take each user and I will try to print return inside the user tag. Wait, let me write it first and then explain. User.name. And here page is equal to user.page. Okay, let me compile and see what output I got. Okay, so it's working. So let me explain you again. So earlier I had hard coded the data here in the user tag. So now I'm trying to print the data from the state property. Let me remove this also for now. Let me comment this. Okay.
Yeah, Vijay Kumar,
Yes, sir.
you can write this as user is outside, no? Outside the angle bracket. Why you are
This
writing
one.
inside the here?
This one.
Yeah.
So why I'm writing inside? So if you go to user component, so here I'm trying to print props and age, correct? So user's age, you want me to print it here, right? So that is what you're asking.
Yes.
So this is a children property and this is the age property. So I'm trying to show you how to print the children property as well as the normal properties which you pass dynamically.
Now, is it not possible to write there?
You can write it, but it will become like a children. It is nothing but it is called as a children. When you write it between the brackets, that is called as. But I want to show you something different. So how to set the property of the age tag? I'll show you. I'll give you some more examples so that you can understand.
Yeah. 1 second. And the users, we are having 3 users: test1, test2, test3. Can I add something, some other users dynamically?
Yeah, you can add. I want to add one more user.
No, I don't want to write there now, the code. I don't know hard code.
Then you have to pass it from somewhere. You have to call an API or make an Ajax call in order to fetch the user data. From like somewhere we have to get the user data, right? So
yeah. So that is possible. So that means you can add into the state.
Yeah, you can add it to state and make it. So before using state, if you see, everything was static. So like we were hard coding even the username and age here. So now after using state, I'm making use of this map function and state property and trying to get the age and the user data dynamically, and everything was done in a single line. If you see the code, earlier I had 3 users and I was writing 3 different lines in order to print 3 users data. So now what I am doing is I'm making use of some inbuilt functions by using the state property. I'm fetching all this data and printing the content dynamically. So now if you see here, I'm not using any, I'm not setting the state. I'm printing whatever was there in the state property as it is. So if you go here, click me doesn't work, but you can see here all these things have been printed dynamically. So what is the advantage of set state is, 1 second. So what is the advantage of set state is I changed something and that changed value. I'm adding it to the same DOM element. I'm updating the DOM. So let me show you how that works, how React works differently than the other browser. Sorry, than the other programming language. Source. Source. So inside the body, okay, we have root tag. Okay. Okay, so when you click here, so if you see here, it is just updating whatever is required. So this is the main advantage of React. So see here, you can see my screen. So whenever I click like this DOM changes. So this is the DOM. So I said you already, whenever the page is loaded initially for the first time, what browser does is browser will create a tree-like structure called as DOM. So this DOM has all these elements like whatever we have it here. But here what I am doing here is I'm changing only the age of the people. So what React component does is React component uses a virtual DOM. So this is the main concept you have to understand. So there are two things. One is real DOM and the virtual DOM. So what is the difference between real DOM and virtual DOM is, if I change something here, and if I want to change the real DOM, then I have to use like a JavaScript function called document.getElement by ID and go to this place and update this. So doing this is more complex, and it is you have the latency. Updating the real DOM was having the latency, and it is cost effective also. So what React gives us is React gives us virtual DOM. So what it does is it will create a similar DOM in its memory. So it will create this DOM in its memory, React. So whenever you change something, first the changes will be done inside the inside the virtual DOM. Then what React does is on the fly it will compare virtual DOM with the real DOM. So it will see, okay, I have test one. So for example, I have a real DOM and virtual DOM side by side. What React does is it will see first person name is test one. So in the real DOM also it is name is test one. So it will not change. It will see the second person name. So even second person name is also same. It will not modify. So whatever changes, only those things it will go and modify in the virtual DOM, in the real DOM. So all the changes it will make it in the virtual DOM. So virtual DOM is in the cache, so it will be easy for React to update it like instantly. But real DOM is on the browser. So finally, after comparing,
now you click on the button, click me.
Yeah, you see here, it will not change. If I start clicking on this, so you see here, test 1, test 2, test 3 doesn't get modified. Only the age property is getting modified. So that's why when you have React, the look and feel of the application like varies compared to the
that means there is no flickering.
Yeah, there is no the component, only the state, whatever you change, that will change. As I showed you here, example on this, like whenever you see Netflix, like it will be changing, the state will be changing here. So if you see here, it is trying to highlight something. So it will change.
The entire page is not changing, only part of the page.
Yeah, only whatever changes you do, only that will change in the DOM. Rest everything will be stable. So there is no latency in loading the page, or you don't have to wait for the content to get loaded and everything. So it will be dynamic. So that's the reason why we use React.
But internally, it will be comparing always the virtual DOM versus real DOM.
Yeah, whatever change you do. No.
The thing is, it will compare which has been changed. That will be timing, no?
No, it doesn't take much time, because real DOM is on the browser. Virtual DOM is with the React. So what React does is it will like change it like very fast. It will change it very fast inside the virtual DOM. The only time, like it will take like very less time. For example, this data, it will hold it similar to a JSON structure. It will create an object. So similarly, like how we have created an object for the user here, name, age. So this user property is already created by the React. So it again don't have to create this property. So this property is created. It has the name property also. It has the age property also. Only thing it has to compare is the age and the name value. It has to compare the value. So it will directly compare the first person value. It will see, compare and see if anything is changed. It will go and change only that particular property. So it is like very fast compared to traditional application, or even if you take Angular also. React it is faster than those applications.
This state is a keyword.
Which one?
Go back to the code. Is it a keyword? Line number 6.
No, this is a feature which is given by React in order to modify the content.
So that means just you cannot change. Instead of state, I cannot write my state.
No, you cannot change. So that's why I showed you in the test example, when you create a class component. So let me create a class component. So when you click here, automatically it will give
State is coming.
State is coming. So it is all keywords. So you cannot change it. So only thing is like this, you have to play with the components, try to alter it and see whether it get renders or not. But this is the main advantage. Why React is so popular and why it is so fast is because it only change whatever got changed, not the other content. Static content will remain as it is. Only the changed property will get changed. So this is the advantage of having React. Give me 2 minutes. I have a call now. I'll just call and I'll come back again. So we can discuss what is React native and web app, and also we will see one more state property and props. I'll take another 15 minutes. Is that okay? Or
okay. Yeah, you can say the important points.
Because you have to like this is web application we are running in the browser. I will also show you how to run the mobile application also. So
okay, no problem. Okay,
okay. Thank you. Okay, so we will wind up this state and props in few minutes. So let us see here. I was saying about passing properties from the main component to the users component. So the main component here was index.js, like where we were displaying the users component. So here I'm trying to pass a property called as title. So title, and I am passing it as string. So I want to print that property. So how to print that property? So if you go here, so here inside the render function under div tag, I'm printing this dot props dot title. So let me change this. Welcome to IARE. So when I compile this, you can see here the props got printed. So this is how we pass property from the base class to the another component. So properties are usually accessed by this dot props and the property name. Okay, this was one thing which I forgot, and the other thing which I want to show you is state. For example, I want to create a state called as title. So here title is users list. I want to display it as users list. So what I'll do is I will create a property called as title, and sorry, I will create a state called as title, and I want to print that state. So if I want to print that state, again here I'll make use of h2 tag and write this dot state dot, so this dot state dot title, and for bracket closed. So if I write this dot, so you can see user list. So you can write n number of properties by separating the comma. I have an array here and I have a string state here. So basically remember this function. If I want to change anything, if I don't do set state, for example, I'll remove this, and if I did not set the state, when you click this click this button, it don't change because you have not set the property. So if you want to change the state of any component, you have to use or make use of this function called this dot state and pass the new state which you want to update. So when you do that, so when you click, so it will start working. So this is what I wanted to tell you. So major difference here, we can modify, props we cannot modify, and here you can so here you can define the state in the component. You can pass properties from the parent component. So we were able to pass properties from parent component, but state you cannot pass. So you remember one more thing, that is you cannot pass state from one component to another component. So this is one of the other difference. So next, let us go to lifecycle hooks. So what is lifecycle hooks? So we all know that everyone will have some like every programming language, or even the normal people have life cycle. So what is life cycle? We will be born.
Vijay, 1 minute. Let's go to previous slide. You said properties are immutable. Can you change properties?
No, you cannot change. Those are
no
static.
Example, age is 20. Later on I can update to 25.
No, this property, for example, here passing property from one component to another component. So I'm talking about this properties. So here I'm passing title from this component to this user component. Okay, so I want to modify this title. I cannot do because the properties can be accessed using this dot props, and you cannot change. But state values you can modify. So that is the difference. So coming to lifecycle hooks, as I told you, like even normal.
So in that case, both are almost same. Mutable, immutable is the difference.
No, they are not almost same. State you cannot pass from one component to another component.
But properties you can pass.
Yeah, properties I passed, right, from parent component. I passed from index.js a property to the users component, but I did not pass state from this component to any other component.
Or state will be accessible there only.
Yeah, state will be specific to that particular component, and it should be updated by the object. So you can see here it is a constant. So this is how it is. So you'll understand, like, once you start using the state and props more and more, we'll try to understand that. So lifecycle methods, I told you, like, everyone will have a certain process in their life. So first we'll go to school, then college, then like working, then finally we will die. So in the similar way, React also has some lifecycle methods. So React component, like, we have three different sections. One is mounting, one other is unmounting, and updating. So what is mounting? When you are loading, like, some functions you can call, so that is called as mounting events. When your component is about to get deleted, you can call some components, so that is called as unmounting events. So you can call some events while unmounting, and when you are updating some properties, you can call updating events. So these are the three different sections what we have in a life cycle. So just remember, mounting is loading, unmounting is removing the component, updating is you are updating some values inside the component. So this first and last will be called only once, because once you load the application, it will be loaded only once. After all, like, it will be only updating. In the last, it will get destroyed. So let us see what are the functions. So we have some functions inside mounting. So that is component will mount and component did mount. So what is component will mount? One second. So when the component is getting mounted, so at the time of mounted, you want to do something. So you can call this function and you can do some activity inside this function. So this is called as component will mount. So once the component is mounted, if you want to do something, so you can call this function and you can execute this function. So it will be automatically executed when the component is mounted, and you can do some activity inside this. So these are mounting events. So when you change the state, when you change the properties, so if you see here, component will update. So if you are changing the property and if you are changing the state, so when you are about to change, you can call this particular function that will, when you are updating something, this particular function will be called automatically. So similarly, when you did the update, after updating, if you want to do something, or if you want to print what was my previous property and previous state, then you can make use of did update. So once the property has been updated, you can access the previous properties and previous state. So, like, these are the different methods, lifecycle methods. So you can start using them like one by one. So whenever like it is necessary, like, I want to access the previous properties, or I want to see what is my next property. So whenever I want to do that, I can make use of this function. And finally, when you want to delete the component, or when you are about to destroy a component, you can call this function. So this is called as component will unmount. So this is unmounting function. So this is about hooks. I told you the advantage of having hooks is you can make functional components as class components. So I told you that in the functional component, I'm not able to use any state here. We cannot use state. But now in the current trend, we have like we have some hooks. Using that hooks, we have something like use state, use reference. So there are so many hooks which are available in React. So I'll just show you that hooks in React. So if you go here in the documentation, so you can see here. So this is a functional component. So you can see function followed by example. So in the functional component, I am trying to use this hook. So use state is a hook. So what it will do is, whenever you press this button, so here they have created a button called as click me. So whenever you click this button, they are calling this set count. So they are setting this new count value. So you have to set this new count value. So you have to you can increment the value inside this, and set count gets updated. So here use state, you should specify what was your starting value. So what this hook will do, this hook will update your count value. So this is how the hooks like come into picture. So you can start exploring hooks. There are useref, there are so many other hooks also. So this is one of the hook called
Now,
as
can you run this hook? Just 1 minute. Just
you want me
execute
to
this
add-
part.
I'll add this and let me see.
Create one new.
1 second. This has to be, I will execute this directly in index.js. User. Okay, I have to export. Function name also got changed. User export default user. Okay. User is not defined. Okay, where is it? Right. So here I have to import an index. So see here, it is changing. And if you see the div tag here, counter value. So let me load it. So when I load it, the DOM got loaded. So when I click here, only the number is getting changed. Is it clear? So how we can make use of state inside functional component by making use of hook called as use state. Use state is a hook. So this you have to pass the initial value. So here you have to declare a variable called as constant, and you have to pass two things, count and set count. If you have data, you can pass data and set data. If you have variable, you can say variable and set variable. So using the set variable function, you can increment the count value. So this count will be incremented, and this set count function will set this count value. So
This is the main method. Use state is the main.
Yeah, use state is a hook, not a main method. It is a hook, which
Yeah,
makes
hook,
yeah, which is a hook. It is already predefined. So this hook will allow you to use state inside the functional component. Is it clear? Like functional component doesn't have state property. State doesn't have states. So by making use of hooks, you can have.
So now it behaves like class component. Now it behaves like a class component.
Yeah, that's how, that is what now everyone are like they have started deviating into the functional component. So that's why like 1 year back when I created a project, automatically that project created a class component. But nowadays, like when you create a project, it is dynamically creating a functional component. So people are making use of hooks like in order to make state or make use of state and properties and change the values of DOM by using functional components. But main thing we should remember is the original component, the main component will always be a class component. Inside, if you have 10 components, sub components, so that components you can make use of class or functional, that is left to you. But the main component should always be a class component. So that point you have to remember. That's all. So this you should remember. And the last thing I want to show you is run a React native application. So there is a difference between React application and the React application which we studied now, and the React application which I'm going to open now. So this React application, I'll share the link with you people so that you can go and visit that documentation. 1 second, let me get that. Okay. Okay. So this is React Native. As I said, React came in 2013. So React Native came in 2015. So here, how to install React Native is you have to do again npm install -g here stands for global. So you're using Expo, which is a third party. So here you have two documentation, two applications you can create. One is using React Native command line interface, and the other one using Expo CLI. So I suggest you, when since you are at the starting state, better to use Expo CLI, because what happens with Expo CLI, I'll show you. So whenever I have a project which is written already here, I'll just execute it. Again, we have same structure with package.json. So just execute npm start. So that will start the application. So this will start the application, and here you can see there are so many options. Press A for Android, press W for web, press R for reload app, something like this. iOS also you'll get. So what happens is, if you press A, it will open the website. You should have the Android Studio installed in your system. If you open, or if you press W, I'll press W now. So if I press W, so this application will be loaded in a different port. So you can see here. So this is toggle buttons like I just created. So you can see here, by making use of this, I can run this a single app inside different environments, mobile and even websites also. So it will also give you a scanner, QR code. So what you have to do is, you have to download an app called as Expo Go. In your Android phone, you can check. I'll just paste it in the chat. 1 second, let me paste it in the chat. So it is called as Expo Go. So this is the Android app. So open this Android app and scan this QR code. So if you scan this QR code, it will open the same website, whatever I have opened in the web application. The same application will get rendered inside the mobile dynamically. You don't have to install Android Studio and do all those circus. So it will directly show it in your app. So this is the React Native application. So one application will serve all the purpose. So it will serve your Android, iOS, web app. But this is like a bit, it is like a framework. So you have to use their own, what do you say, their own React Native package and their components. For example, see here, if I want to print a text, earlier I was using HTML tags, but here I'm using the text tag which is in the React Native and trying to print something. So like this. So button also is already predefined in the React Native library. So we have to make use of that button tag, component, and create a button. So already these components are created inside React Native. So we should make use of this component and render the application. So this is a bit different from like what we studied, but it follows the same concept whatever we have studied till now. So this is all about React. So
while installing, you write CLI.
Expo CLI. So I'll share you that website. 1 second. 1 second. Expose CLI, and I'll share the documentation also. React Native environment setup. I'm adding it in the chat. So this is the environment setup which we do. And if you want to go through some of the documentation, you can go through this. The first link which I have given will give you the steps to install. It is directly 2 steps. You can install it directly. And the second one will give you different packages which you can use inside React Native.
Yeah. Kindly keep this link in a special, what is it, PPT, so that I will refer in the future. You are having something 29 to 30 PPTs are now.
Yeah, I think 21 slides are there.
You keep in the last PPT. This one just copy. You add 1 slide.
Okay, with all these links. Okay, I can do that. So this is about React Native, like telling about React like for within 3 hours is difficult, but I think like I have covered some of the basics concepts which we can use in React. So this is about React. I think you can start creating the project and start creating some web applications related to like what students make. You can ask them to start using React and create some components as a mini project or something like that. So even they will also start learning, and even you can also learn along with them. So that's all from me. So any questions you have?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You have given elaborate session on this.
Yeah.
So the participants, so in the afternoon session, please practice yourself. And here given the elaborate details of the React. You have to practice. So tomorrow morning we'll see again. So in the afternoon session, please practice. All the participants, please install first React as here given the guidelines. Please follow that one and practice the programs.
I'll share the PPT with all the links to Sanjay.
Yeah.
So Sanjay, like he's my friend, so I'll share with him.
You can pass Sanjay can pass.
Yeah, Sanjay will forward it. Okay.
Okay. Participants. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Vijay.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Vijay. It's a very informative session for all of